Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. Today's guest is James Day. James is a husband, father, and business owner who finds fulfillment in helping others through acts of service. Based on the stunning Mornington Peninsula, he draws strength from connection with his community, people, and nature. He is the host of Slaying Sober, a podcast where he helps others share their stories of addiction, recovery, and hope. Through vulnerability, humor, and real talk, James makes sobriety feel relatable and achievable. As a recovering addict himself, James is making amends for 25 years, marked by blackout drinking, partying, and the isolation and hopelessness that came with addiction. Today, he works a recovery program not only to stay sober, but to grow as a person, living his amends daily and finding peace in being able to sleep with a clear conscience each night. Oh my goodness, how good is waking up in the morning knowing that you didn't do anything or say anything the night before?
It is so good to wake up knowing that I've got a clean slate every day and the beauty of the world in front of me.
I still I still remember that feeling. We call it, in recovery, guilt, shame, and remorse. Like that cringe, that sinking feeling in my stomach when I'd wake up the next morning and go, who did I text? And then I'd reach for my phone and I'd start going through my call log. And I've spoken to like 10 different people. Some of these phone calls have gone for like 30 minutes plus, and I have no idea what I've said on the phone. Like, it makes me feel sick thinking about it.
And it's like in your bed before you've even stepped out of bed, you're like, oh my God, what have I done? This is bloody horrible. What a terrible way to start the day.
What a horrible way to start the day. Oh my gosh. Hey, James, welcome to Behind the Smile. How are you today?
It is so good to join you, Ash. Thanks for having me. I'm great. I'm really, really good. I'm in a great spot.
I feel like this conversation has been a long time coming because we actually met, what was it, nearly 3 years ago or 2 years ago? I've lost track of time.
I was early in sobriety. It was when you did your TED talk. I was lucky enough to be there in the crowd,
Yes.
and I was very early in my sober journey, probably 3 or 4 months in, and you were up there on stage talking about the joys and gifts of recovery, and I was like, oh my God, I've listened to you, and I felt connected to you from day dot. So it's lovely to catch up finally.
So nice. I'm so curious, what drew you to the event that day? Like, what made you buy a ticket and go check it out?
Mm. I was in early recovery and I was still unwell and I was still clinging at things that I think could make me well, and attending a TED event was something that I thought was good to broaden my horizons. Um, and so I went with an open mind and um, little did I know that that wasn't what I needed to recover. But it was great. I heard some amazing stories. I connected with you. There was another presenter on the day that spoke about legacy, Steve, and I felt deeply connected to that, about the loss of his father and about storytelling and recording things and putting them on tape that now sees me do stuff like this and record my own podcast. So I felt like that day gave me a lot. It
Mm.
gave me a lot.
I think that it's really important, no matter where you are in your journey, whether it's a recovery journey, a transformation journey, if you're just trying to grow as a human being, putting yourself in rooms where there's a higher energetic frequency, where you're going to learn, where you're going to grow, where you might even meet somebody who could illuminate a path forward for you, is so, so powerful. And I don't think we do that enough as human beings. We stay in the comfort zone a lot, right? Because you've actually got to put yourself out there. You've got to pay, you've got to put money, skin in the game to buy a ticket. Then you've got to actually show up, stay for the whole event, and then have the guts to come up and to a speaker at the end and say, hey, my name's James. Like, that's not stuff that people do naturally. So it's pretty cool that you were doing that so early on.
Yeah, and I think I've always been one for not being the smartest person in the room, so to speak. And,
Mm,
when I say smart, I don't mean a piece of paper from a university. I mean, lived experience, different experiences. There was a lady there that day that was making plants sing. And I was like, my God, like, this is like, is this real? Just broadening your horizons to beyond the square walls that we are sometimes in.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
And at the
All
end
right.
of the day, after we had a chat, I,
Yes.
um, I said, "Are you a hugger, Ash?" And you said, "Yes." And you gave me the most beautiful hug or cuddle, and I felt very connected. And your smile, I was like, "Yep, no, we'll keep staying in touch." So here we are.
Oh, thank you. I am a hugger. people who people who work with me or come to my classes know that I'm a hugger. So yes, that was very special. James, I want our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So we're going to kick
Mm,
off with some super easy questions. Can you share? I know we mentioned Mornington Peninsula, but where do you
yep.
live? What does an average day look like? And what do you do for fun?
So I live in Red Hill on the Mornington Peninsula, which is an hour south of Melbourne. We're between the two bays. Um, it's winery country, I mean, it still is winery country. It's not for me anymore, but it's really beautiful. It's quiet. It's within nature. It's a really, really beautiful part of the world. My day, I was thinking about this. My ideal day is to wake up at home. Before I get out of bed, I will do a little prayer, a bit of a step three prayer, which for me is I'm yours, show me, help me. And that's
Mm,
me talking to my higher power. Help me through this day. I have no control really on what happens. I love to physically touch the person next to me, which happens to be my wife in some way. And I love to have a coffee with her in the morning. I just bought a kick-ass coffee machine.
ooh.
So yeah, so it's a really good opportunity for us to connect and talk. Um, I enjoy looking at my intentions for the day. What am I doing? What's in front of me? Um, I need to move my body. I've just been to the gym this morning to lift some heavy weights, which makes me feel good inside, and that I'm working on my physical self and mental health. I try to attach to my recovery, whether that's a meeting, whether that's reaching out to someone else within the program that we work on. Um, my family are interconnected through my day, depending on where we are. We're in holidays at the moment, so I feel a
Mm,
bit freer.
mm.
And also, look, I run a business as well. So I've got 10 staff. It's a proper business, it's a proper job. And I love what I do. I sell telephones is the really short way of it, but I'm a relationship guy that helps build solutions for clients. So that's sort of me. At the end of the day, it's important for me to keep inventory as well. What have I done today that's good? Let's do more of that. What have I done that hasn't served me or my loved ones? And do less of that and make apologies if I need to. So that's sort of
Mm.
my perfect day. But look, the reality is, like, I've got two young children. It's chaotic. If I can do half of what I've just said there, it's where I need to be.
Yeah, yeah, you're kicking goals. I want to circle back to something you spoke about just then about when you wake up in the morning and you say that prayer. I love the way that you simplified the third step prayer. It's absolutely beautiful. And for those
Yeah.
who are listening along who don't know what we're talking about here, we're talking about step 3 from a 12-step recovery program. And the longer version basically is handing our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. That's what the step 3, I suppose, instruction is. And with that
Yes.
comes this really beautiful prayer. But it even says in our literature that you can reword this prayer to make it fit for you. So I love what you have done with that. And what
Mm.
I'd like to expand on there for our audience is to help them understand why. Why is it so important for somebody like you or me to hand our will over first thing in the morning?
Because I am powerless over what's in front of me. I'm a small, tiny speck of sand on a great wide beach. And that really, like, who knows what's ahead of us in the
Mm,
day? Um, So it simplifies that. It's handing over to a higher power as well. You know, I have come to realize through my addiction that I can't heal myself by myself. You know,
Mm,
I need help from something outside of me. Um, and so it's worked really well when I've handed over to something greater than myself, which is my higher power.
Oh, I so agree. It's funny. It's one of the only prayers that I say every single day
Mm,
because I'm the same. I wake up, I heard this said in the room once and it really resonated with me is I go to bed a recovered alcoholic and I wake up a full-blown alcoholic. And what I
yeah.
mean by that is not that I have a craving for a drink first thing in the morning, but the noise inside my head, the thinking that's associated with the isms of alcoholism. That is something that still, if I'm not working a program and maintaining my spiritual fitness, then that gets really loud. And so what that looks like for me is I start to take my will back throughout the day. And I was recently at a convention and somebody asked me, what does it look like for you when you take your will back? And I said, it's when I don't pause. It's when I make decisions
Mm,
around big important things without getting guidance from perhaps my sponsor. It's when life starts to feel really full of friction. So if I feel like I'm rubbing up against the grain of life, that's a really clear indication that I've taken my will back in some way. Because when I am God centered, when I am moving in a flow state, and when I've
mm.
handed my will over, life is actually quite easy. It feels, what's the word I'm looking for here? Really fluid. It's a flow
Yes.
state, right?
Yeah, and our addictions present themselves in many ways, and that can be as simple as a car cuts in front of you in traffic and you flip them the bird. You know, that is our addiction presenting itself. You know, the end of the day, I need to put myself in the feet of that's not harming me in any way, shape, or form. I don't know
Mm,
where they're going.
mm,
Am not going to get there any slower than what I am. They might have a pregnant wife that they're going to hospital to deliver their baby. You know, I have no idea of what shoes that they're in. And the other part of that as well is like usually when people show aggression towards us,
mm.
it's themselves and their issues manifesting themselves and pointing back towards us. So,
Yeah.
you know, I find that all of the time that people aren't necessarily well, you know, um, but if I look after me, then that stuff doesn't bother me on a day to day.
It's that whole idea of hurt people, right? And even as you were
Yes.
just saying that, I was thinking to myself, how many times have I been the one who's accidentally cut someone off? Or, I'm at a traffic light and I've drifted off, my mind's full of thoughts. Maybe I'm dealing with something really emotionally heavy and I haven't noticed the
Mm.
light go green. And then all of a sudden the person behind is like so aggressively honking the horn. And
Yeah.
it really creates this awful like shock to your system. And I'm sure that they're swearing, their head off behind me in the car behind. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, like when the shoe is on the other foot, if somebody, is taking a moment or two to move from their traffic light, maybe just give them a gentle beep, a little hello,
Yeah.
like wake up, yeah, time to come back rather than this real heavy aggression because most likely they're not choosing to be distracted or pulled from
Mm.
the present moment, but whatever's going on in their life is pulling them out. So, yeah, a little more compassion, I think, as well, just for ourselves and for each other.
Kindness to others, you know, is just the
Mm,
general. That should be the default setting all the time, you know? If the
I was
world was more like that, how good would that be?
100%. I was listening to Chris Hemsworth and he was interviewed on Jay Shetty's podcast just a few days
Mm,
ago. And Jay always asks this question at the end of his podcast if you had one rule that you could create. Um, and Chris spoke about kindness. I mean, he also said
mm.
make the work week a 3-day work week, which I love. Um, but it
Yeah.
really is so simple. It's just be kind. And if we could all just practice that a little more. And even sometimes I say to students, like, just try to do it 5% better.
Mm.
Just try, just
Yeah.
5% better today. That's all we need to aim for.
Absolutely. Love
Mm.
that.
All right, James, what do you do for fun, my friend?
What do I do for fun? I think, look, I love experiences, so I love by nature travel. I am big now on sort of going to live shows, whether that's music, theatre, and sharing that with my loved ones is just a real thing for me at the moment. I've spent the weekend in the garden doing gardening, which I would have just never. I actually used to do that, but to use when I was like mowing the lawn and, away from like secretively. But now getting my hands in the dirt, being at one with nature, they're big things for me. And I love to be of service as well. Like I often put my hand up to help others. So whether that's coaching my son's football team, whether it's coaching a basketball team, whether it's reaching out to someone within the rooms, being a sponsor to sponsees, any of those things fill my cup up. And I'm able to do those really mindfully now. So I
Mm.
love that.
Is service something that you've always leaned into, or is that a newer space that you're in now that you're sober?
It's something I've always leaned into. I'm a bit of a people pleaser, but I
Mm.
am now able to do it without expecting anything in return. And
Mm.
that is just so much more fulfilling, like I think there's a lot of people around at junior sports clubs that are putting their hands up to help their children's teams. Um, for the benefit of their children, right? Whereas it's a different being to help everyone across the board and to see them all collectively grow is a really, really beautiful thing. So, and
Mm.
when you don't expect things in return, it comes double fold back to you. And it's just the most rewarding feeling. I love it.
Mm. And tell me, when it comes to sponsoring other men and doing service in a 12-step recovery program, what
Yeah.
have you noticed in that? What's shifted for you? What do you get in return from that? Like, I'm curious to know your experience.
Yeah. It keeps me tethered to our program. When I'm helping others through step work, I am often learning from my sponsees, which is
Mm.
just unreal. Like when we're in the rooms, we talk about the newcomer being the most important person in the room. And before I started the step work, I got really obsessed with that, you know, welcome, it's so good. We'd work with rehab groups and you'd see these people progress over 7, 14, 30 days and be like, oh my God, you're really glowing and you're looking great and da da da. And how good's this? Um, I got reminded by my sponsor when I was about 6 months in that look around as well. Like, look at the people that have got some time under their belt and what they have. So I sort of put the cotton wool, took it out of my ears and put it in my mouth, and I listened to what they had to say as well. And I realized, oh, they've got this calm, they've got this serenity, they're giving back to the program that has given them so much. So I um, draw from their wisdom and their knowledge. And maybe others sort of see me a little bit like that, but I'm the first one to put my hand up and say, what do I know? I'm still learning all the time, and from sponsees in particular. So yeah, I love
Mm.
being a sponsor. It's very, very rewarding. Um, but also they've got to want to work their program as well. You've got to be really patient. It teaches you patience as well.
Oh my gosh. Working with other women in recovery has taught me so much about
Mm.
myself. It's actually helped me become less of a people pleaser.
Yeah.
It's taught me how to hold really firm boundaries, how to stop rescuing people. Because,
Mm.
the really sad reality of recovery is that it's a revolving door. And I can count on probably one hand the women that I've worked with who are still in recovery. And I'll
Yep.
tell you, and I really stand by this, the difference, the thing that they do that the others didn't do which I believe is why they're still here. It's because they've then started sponsoring.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, and it talks about in our literature that working with others is the antidote to this disease, to alcoholism. So
Mm.
absolutely, the first year is about taking everything that you need, fighting for your life, plugging the holes in the life raft and getting well. But if you don't then start helping other people to do the same, I've just seen it time and time and time again where people end up back out there drinking again.
Yeah, and it's that concept of, we have a spiritual awakening towards the end of our 12-step program. I didn't quite have that. Like, I didn't see there was no great, like, light in the sky or, like I wasn't levitating and I was really pissed off. Like, why aren't I
Damn
levitating?
it!
I've done this 12-step program. I've finished it. Why aren't I levitating?
Yeah.
And then I realized you don't finish the 12 steps.
Yeah, you don't
You got to
graduate.
start. Yeah, you don't graduate. You start giving back. And I
Mm.
remember it was probably a month after I started sponsoring, I called my sponsor and I said, I think I'm levitating. Like, it's me giving back, and that's where it is. It's in the
Mm,
giving back to others. And like, you get to see it click for them and you get to see them
mm,
challenged and you remember where you've come from and all those sorts of things. And
mm.
it's that thing of like being of service to me is just, it makes me feel so good. I love it. Like, it really gives me the
Yeah.
warm and fuzzies and that spiritual awakening that we're promised.
You're so right. I love the word you used to describe it's a tethering back to the program.
Mm,
In my coming up to 6 years soon, and over that
amazing.
6-year period, yeah, thank you. It's pretty exciting. It's kind of bizarre at the same time. Um, I, you know, I haven't always wanted to go to meetings. In fact, there's been periods where I've really resisted going to meetings. I think
Mm,
the longest I've ever gone without a meeting is about 5 weeks, and that's been when I've been traveling, which
mm.
is still, considering over, I'm talking about 6 years, 5 weeks is the longest I've ever gone. But since I started sponsoring around a year, I've never not sponsored. And I think that's been a big part of why I've always stayed connected because and I don't recommend not going to meetings and just sponsoring because that's not great recovery either. Like you've got to work
Yeah,
all three
yeah.
sides of the triangle. I guess what I'm saying
Yes.
though is that I've still been connected in some way because if nothing else I'm helping another person stay sober by sharing my own experience, strength and hope. And it's funny because I don't think anybody feels ready to sponsor. I think every single person I've ever spoken to is like, "Oh no, like what if I fuck it up or ruin their and it's like, no
Yeah.
one feels ready, but as long as you're just sharing your experience, strength, and hope, and it's not about trying to be the smartest person in the room or the like to know the big book back to front, be able to recite verbatim. Like it's not about any of that. It's literally just about holding someone's hand and showing them the way.
Yeah, and just, I mean, I suppose it's leadership in some ways, for
Mm.
want of a better term, but, like, I often find myself, I'll be speaking to my sponsees and I'll say, like, "When was the last time you went to a meeting?" "Oh, I
Mm.
haven't been for a week." "Well, fucking get back there," and then I'll hang up the phone and go, "Oh, shit, I haven't been for a couple of weeks myself," like, "Oh, God." And then but
Yes.
yeah, and then I'll get on the phone to them and say, "Right, we're going together," you know?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, and then I walk out of there and I've supercharged myself back to in my recovery. It's a
Mm.
beautiful thing. I
It
keep
really
reminding
is.
myself of what I need to do.
That's exactly right. I've got a friend who tells funny story about when he takes a phone call from a sponsee and he'll give some really great advice and then he hangs up the phone and he goes, "That's some pretty good sponsorship. I should listen to my own advice."
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
Oh my
How beautiful.
goodness. James, I've asked you to bring in a photo today. And this photo is from a time in your life where you were hiding behind a smile. So you were
Mm.
presenting one version of yourself externally, but the reality was you were struggling internally. For those who are listening along, I'm about to bring the photo up on the screen. Can you please describe for us what are we looking at here in this photo and what was really going on for you at that time in your life?
Yeah. Well, in the photo, I've got my wife's gold sparkly shoes on, her Nikes. I've got a little peace symbol up and a bit of a pouty face. I look like a bit of a goose, but I was up and about, definitely. I think I just walked out of a disabled toilet cubicle, charging into what was my last ever weekend of consumption of drugs and alcohol. So this was my work Christmas party, just over 2 years ago, and which is a notoriously large day. And I'm looking at that photo, and I've got hundreds of photos like that, where I just feel invincible. And to be fair, I probably did at the time. Um, on that particular day, it was a Friday, and I had a curfew on that day, which I'd spoken through a boundary that my family set, um, to be home at a certain time. And it was about 6 o'clock at night. So I still had a large and enjoyable day. And I got home at 6 o'clock, and I rang my dad, and I rang my wife, who'd taken the kids away for the weekend because she knew what sort of state I'd be coming back in. Um, and I felt very proud of myself in that moment. But it was about half an hour afterwards, when I was sitting there by myself lonely, um, that I sent a text message to probably 20 or 25 of my friends, and I told them, that I have a problem with
Mm,
alcohol and drugs. I told them that I needed help for it, and that Monday is when I checked into rehab. So
wow.
yeah, so the photo that, and I'm looking at it now, of me looking and feeling invincible at the time, it was a harrowing sort of 48 hours afterwards before I went to rehab. Um,
Mm,
After sending that message, I didn't stop. The whole weekend was a farewell tour. I partied, I went up and down to the city. Um, but I did some stuff that I'm very, very ashamed of, that I'm still working through now.
mm.
Stuff that was dangerous, stuff that was uh, not to the values that I hold, embarrassing, shameful. Um, and then on the Monday morning, I got up and I got in my car with a 4-pack of hard solos, and I drank those as I was driving to rehab. And and I checked in, and I checked
Mm,
into rehab, and I was very sick, physically and mentally. I was completely a shell of a person. So
yeah.
that's the story of the photo.
Wow. It's so crazy,
Mm,
isn't it? Like, it just makes me think about how many photos, we're in the festive season at the moment. It's Christmas, New Year's, summer holidays.
mm.
Looking at how many photos go up online, and I just have a different lens these days, and I can see almost, like you said, the turmoil behind the smile in a lot of these photos for people presenting one version of themselves, looking like they're having the greatest time. But what you're not seeing on social media is the fight that they have with their partner when they get home, the lies that they've told, the behaviors that have played out while they've been out there drinking, living out of alignment with their values. It's I think a lot of people can resonate with that, whether you're in recovery or not. I think many of us have been there before, and it's just such an uncomfortable way to live life. So, I'm really
Yeah.
curious to know, what was the response when you sent that text message out?
Mm. Look, I think in the text message, I sort of said, like, I don't need a response. Don't contact me. Like, leave me. Like, I've got to deal with this. And people did respond, and I've spoken to people since. But it was more or less a surrender that I have a problem. I, this wasn't my rock bottom. There were many along the way. But this was me reaching out and acknowledging that I had a problem. I've known for years that um, my drinking has been problematic. I've always
Mm,
been a blackout drunk. I've caused a lot of problems. I got a lot of shame and guilt around it. Um, but I was able to manipulate myself out of those scenarios. I used to go like with my wife and family's encouragement, I went to rehab centres to meet, like the manager and do a tour around. And by the end of it, every time they were like, no, you don't need this place, because I was highly functional, and because I was manipulative. Um,
Mm.
I used to go to AA meetings and stand up there and said, "Hi, I'm James. I drink too much." I couldn't identify as an alcoholic. I now identify as an addict because, alcohol is a drug, and I believe I'm an addict to many other things, not just substance as well. So that's
Mm,
how I identify um, now. But the
mm,
what I found is I think when I reached out to other people to tell them that I had a problem, um, some of them were shocked because I was the life of the party guy, you know? I had a lot of things, shiny things, nice things, kids in private school. Like there was a lot of good stuff going on from the outside.
mm,
Inside of me, I didn't want to die, but I certainly didn't want to live anymore. I was
mm,
very, very hopeless inside. And um, yeah, I was not enjoying my life despite everything that I had.
mm,
Um, and people, reached out with empathy and kindness and love. But it wasn't until I got in the rooms, and in fellowship that was where I really felt heard and seen and saw the similarities with others seeking recovery.
mm. So, is the reason that you didn't want to identify as an alcoholic because you associated alcoholism with the stigma that we all have? The brown paper bag, the losing the job, that whole picture. What was it? Do you think was it the ego?
Yeah, I think it was the ego. Like I'm a successful business person. I felt like if I was to identify as an alcoholic, that I was not only an alcoholic, I was a failure.
Mm,
I think that's what it was.
mm,
And I've never liked labels anyway, like I'm not a huge fan of labels. Yeah, I think I thought that I would be a failure if I was labeled as such. And
mm.
I probably didn't want it to end as well, Ash, like
Yeah.
I thought for a long time in my life, I felt like there was this hole within inside of me that I needed to fill. And I tried yoga and I tried meditation. I tried reading. I tried everything, like changing jobs, changing houses, changing partners throughout my life, but the embarrassingly blatant thing that was problematic the whole time was in a can at the end of my hand, like
Mm,
that was the common denominator,
mm,
and
mm,
it's embarrassing now that I look back at it how blatant it was.
mm. It's so hard to see when we're in it, and
Mm.
especially if you form your identity around being the life of the party, the person who brings the party. There's just so much grief in the idea of letting go of that, and who am I if I don't have this, and what's going to become of my life? And I think until you get to that point where the pain is greater than the fear of the change, like we do continue those patterns. I'm really curious to know, where did this hole in the soul come from for you?
I don't know. I've
Mm.
looked and I've tried to find it. Like trying to find a trauma that may or may not be there. I think um ultimately it is that feeling of not being enough is has
Mm,
always been big for me, I think. I've always had talent and attention and success, I suppose, through my life. But I've never felt like it's been enough, and
mm,
and I think progressively in adulthood, I thought that it would just be a linear trajectory of finish school, get a job, meet a girl, get married, buy a house, have a kid, da 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 da. But like the reality is life isn't like that, and you always want for more. Um, and I think that I thought I was a provider for my family. Like I really thought I earn good money, I provide for my family, I'm doing a great job. But then I didn't feel enough there, I felt like I wasn't a good enough husband, I felt like I wasn't a good enough father, and that really, like, played a lot on my mind, and I think, my best friend in alcohol was a great way of soothing myself, and really whenever I wanted to, um
Mm.
and socially it was very acceptable to do so. And what my friends would have seen from the outside often is just that, it's James, he enjoys a drink, he has a great time, but what they don't know is, like, at the barbecue that, at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, when I was going home with a nice little buzz, that I'd crack a bottle of wine and I'd keep going, or and
Yes.
that got progressively worse to the point where, I was drinking from Thursday night till Sunday night, like,
Mm.
and beyond that at times.
Mm. I think it's really important to highlight here that from what you're sharing, you weren't an everyday drinker. And one thing I didn't understand until I got sober was that alcoholism and addiction can look very different for different
Mm,
people. And you don't have to drink every day to qualify. I was actually chatting to my friend's dad the other day because he was asking me questions about my recovery and my sobriety, and he was really curious. And I'm always happy to chat about this. And
yeah.
I was trying to explain to him because they don't mind a drink themselves. And they were sort of saying, "Oh, well, are we alcoholics?" And I said, "Well, let me ask you this. At the end of the night, can you put the plug in the jug? Can you put the lid back on
Mm,
and put half a bottle of wine back in the fridge and have a cup of tea and go to bed?" They're like, "Yeah, that's what we do every night." And I was like, "Then you're
mhm.
not an alcoholic." Like,
Yeah.
for me, once I start, I can't stop. I can stay stopped maybe for a few days though,
Yep.
especially if I had responsibilities, like we were saying, like high functioning, you've got things to show up for. But
Yep.
but once I start, it is, a train's gonna have to stop me, basically.
Oh, it's game on, and then there's a bloke with a black Audi showing up, and there's some sort of cash deposit, and because you can stay
A
up and party for
withdrawal of
longer, and
$300.
yeah,
Yep.
and all the yeah, all of that, was part of my story. Like,
Mm,
and I was really generous. I was a really generous party guy. Like
mm.
I'd furnish everyone with what they wanted and needed, and keep going, and all the rest of it. I mean, the reality is I was enabling my own behavior, you
Yeah,
know?
and wanting others to stay with you, right?
Yeah, yeah, I don't wanna be by
Mm,
myself because once everyone leaves, I'm still buzzing and I'm by myself, and things get pretty awkward, pretty lonely, Very
mm,
lonely.
mm. So you mentioned there were a couple of rock bottoms before you had this moment of realizing that you needed to go to rehab. What were some of those? What did they look like?
Um Oh, look, like, to briefly gloss over them, like a suicide attempt,
Oh my goodness.
my wife having enough of my behavior, and proposing that I leave the home, and me thinking that's a great idea because I knew it would enable me to be able to continue my lifestyle, bury my head in the sand, um, poor relationships with friends and family, letting people down. Um, like I had to get some insurances for work for my business partnership, and I became uninsurable because of my uh, mental health diagnosis and my physical health. It just was one after another thing that was completely unacceptable. I just thought it was all normal, I just thought, like, this is how people live, like,
Yeah.
I'm fast paced, I'm high functioning, I'm getting after it, like, I'm going on amazing holidays, I'm doing amazing things, I've got shiny things, all of that sort of stuff. I just thought that was an acceptable way of living, you
Mm.
know, and the downsides were, some sort of, it was just it was a minor consequence because of all the good stuff I was doing, you know? I was either at 10 or I was at 0, you know? Like, that was how it was.
Mm.
And people saw me at 10 more often than they saw me at 0, you know?
Mm.
Now I'm all about just trying to maintain at a 7, you know, all the time. I
Yeah.
chase contentment now, not happiness,
Yes.
you know? That's where I wanna
Yes.
be. Mm.
Oh, you're speaking my language there. Oh,
Yeah.
how I always say, I wish it was more of a sexy word because contentment is so it's so
Yeah.
beige, but like the feeling that I get when I am like, often in my gratitudes at the moment it's coming up, like I wake up and I have a peaceful heart. Like I just
Mm.
feel like I'm okay, everything is okay. I am enough. I have enough. Like we're good. We're good,
Yeah.
and the ripple effect that has then to the people around me, the way I show up for my clients, for my friends, for my family, like it's just like I wouldn't give this up for anything now. But for
Are you
so
a
long I
big
tried to
gratitude list person?
yeah, I
Yeah.
write a gratitude list every single day. What about you?
Yeah, I am. And I was just thinking though, like when I was in early recovery, gratitude for me was like, I've got a roof over my head. I've got a
Mm,
warm shower. You know, they were really like survival, like Maslow's theory, you
mhm.
know, Maslow's structure there of like, I've got food, I've got shelter, you know, I've got warmth. Whereas now, like I can sit there and I'll look out the window and like bird in tree, but not only bird in
Mm,
tree, like it's feathering its nest, you know, it's
mm.
rebirthing up there. Like shit like that that sounds a bit woo woo, but I would have never noticed that.
That's the thing, right? It's the awareness, it's the cracking open, like
Mm.
you're being fully present in the present moment to be able to even witness that. Whereas I think in the early days of recovery, like you're just focusing on staying alive, right? Fighting for your
Well, yeah,
life.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Can we talk about that a little more? I'd love to know.
Mm.
Firstly, how did you end up in the rehab you were in?
um, I shopped around a while, and I found a beautiful place called Arrow Health. Um, And little did I know that the owners of Arrow Health, I used to kick around a bit socially with. So we're recording this before Christmas, but we had a beautiful, beautiful friend that used to host Christmas carols around at his house. He's a reasonably well known person, but he'd pull out the piano and he'd tickle the ivory and we'd all sing. And it was just the most beautiful, beautiful event most of the time, but it was
Mm,
me as well. Like I was dragging myself in, like it was around Christmas party time. It was just like I was fucking exhausted. So I probably didn't see the beauty of it all. But there was this beautiful couple there that are in the medical profession that I always just, they had this aura about them. And despite me being so bent most of the time, I always gravitated to them and I
mm,
always spoke to them and could feel their kindness and their empathy and whatnot. And anyway, it turns out that they own Arrow Health and you know they've put together this rehabilitation program. They lost a son to the disease and it's funny, like, that full circle moment of me and I didn't know. It was, like, only after a few weeks of being there, I was like, "Oh, hold on. I know these people."
oh my gosh,
And
so you didn't
yeah.
put two
No,
and
I
two
didn't
together.
know. No,
Oh, what a
not
god
until I
job.
was down the track. Yeah, well, exactly right. It's a god job, yeah. It's a god
Mm,
job. So, um, yeah, so that's how I ended up in there, and it wasn't a 12-step program either, Ash. It was science-based, I suppose, and I learnt about the disease of addiction. I learnt
mm,
it's not just me, there's other people, and it's a brain chemistry thing, and it's a dopamine chasing thing, and this is why we do it. And um, so that's how I ended up in that rehab. That was your question, wasn't it?
Yeah, like out of all the rehabs in Victoria,
Yeah.
how did you choose that one? Yeah.
Well, they're the only ones that I couldn't bullshit, really. And I remember doing the intake. I remember sitting in my car. It was a Monday afternoon, a gloomy day in late winter, and I didn't make it to work that day, but I was driving around in my car, pretending that I was at work, drinking in my car, and the phone rang mid-afternoon, and I was blind. I shouldn't have answered the call, and it was them, and they were doing my intake into rehab,
Oh,
and
wow.
I almost hung up the phone, but they asked me the questions, and they kept saying, "Yes, this place is for you. Yes, this place is for you." And I probably did it out of people pleasing. I
Mm,
probably went to rehab to suffice the needs of my parents and my wife, to people please them. And I
mm.
thought, I surrendered to go there, and I sent that message out to my friends. I made the decision to go to rehab, but I probably thought I was just learning to drink like a gentleman.
Oh, I had the exact same thought. I was like, this'll
Yeah,
teach I'll learn how to drink like a lady. This is great.
yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Because I thought that's what I could do. It was, and I've surrendered many times. I surrendered to go to rehab, but it was later on that I surrendered to go to the rooms
Mm.
of a 12-step fellowship. And then it was, 6 months in, I'm going to surrender to do the step work. Um, and then at various steps along the way, I've continued to surrender. And it was at one point there that I went, oh boy, I'm never picking up again. I'm done. I'm retired.
Wow.
And it's been beautiful. The
Mm.
whole journey's been beautiful.
How long were you in Arrow for?
I did an outpatient program, so I
Yep.
wasn't in Arrow. When I say I was in there, I was. It was 4 weeks, 3 days a week, and yeah, so it was 4 weeks, and it was from November right up through till Christmas two
And
years
so
ago.
were you because I actually funnily enough, Dad and I have done H&Is for Arrow, but
Yeah,
that was in Armidale. Were you there or were you at the location further out?
I was in Armidale in the church.
Oh, yes, I know exactly where
Yeah,
you were. So you were
yeah.
commuting every day?
I was, yeah. Yeah, I was driving
Yeah.
in every day. So
Mm.
that
Yeah.
that was I was going to work in the morning, I was leaving halfway through the day, and I think it went from 12, no, 2 till 8 or something like that every day. So I was leaving work halfway through, and I sat down with my business partner and my office manager here, and I said a similar thing to what that text message said. Hey guys, I really need help. And 'cause it was hard, to step out of work, it was really hard to, um, let my 10 staff know that I'm
Yeah.
out and this is why I'm out,
Mm.
and, there's no more Friday long lunches, guys, or if there is, I won't be, putting myself in a position where I'm sitting in a pub or whatnot. So I told them what I was doing, and I told my family, and my life socially changed over that period of time. It was the festive period. I just wasn't going anywhere near any events. And I was pretty strong willed
Mm.
that, I was pretty strong willed that I'd have time away from the booze. Um, and it just grew that it was going to be a forever thing.
Mm. Mm. I'm really curious to talk about this outpatient for a little longer
Yeah.
because what I love about this, most of the people I speak to either go straight to AA or they go into rehab and they do like a 3 week, 4 week inpatient, maybe sometimes long term. But what you're saying here is you found this hybrid where you were still able to work part of the time,
Hmm.
still be at home with your family of an evening, but then you were getting the education and the support from Arrow as you started your recovery journey. And I really want to echo that recovery can look different for everyone because
Yeah.
I can't tell you the amount of conversations I've had with people who've reached out to me online or in person over the years who've said, I can't possibly go to rehab because fill in the blank. And it's normally
Mm.
my family would find out, which I always say, trust me, they know. Or,
Yeah.
my work, I couldn't possibly let my work know. And it all ties back to the stigma and the shame that people carry with this disease. And, we
Mm.
both understand that better than anyone. But what I want to ask you is, what do you think your life would look like right now if you'd continued to make excuses and to say, I'll get to that later, I'll wait for things to get worse, or, I don't really need that, I'm not that bad.
I know exactly how it would look because for a while I fantasized about it, and I'd be living by myself. I'd be living in a little unit in Mornington somewhere, and I'd be drinking whenever I wanted, wherever I wanted. And ultimately, look, that was 2 years ago. I'd probably be dead by now. I probably would have drank myself into oblivion. I would have realized that I've lost all this stuff that I had, the stuff that is dear to me, my family and my children. Um, I just can't see how I would have survived it. If I did, I'd be a bitterly, bitterly unhappy guy. Um, I'd be financially ruined. That's where I would be. That's
Mm.
what would have ended up happening. It's as simple as that.
I mean, to come out, particularly to your staff and to your business partner, and to say, I have a problem and I'm going to go and get help, like that's ego deflation at depth. And I think that's actually part of when we can be honest with our journey, it's also helps you to stay accountable as well.
Mm,
I was
yeah,
having this conversation with someone the other day who's navigating work Christmas parties at the moment, and she just keeps saying, "Oh, I've got a meeting later," or "I'm driving today." And I said, "Why don't you just say that you don't drink?" And
yeah.
she's like, "Oh, I don't know." And I said, "Because once you say that, or even if you felt comfortable enough to say I'm in recovery, it puts a full stop on that discussion. There's no more. You don't have to keep coming up with excuses every single time." I think people really respect it. And yes, there's going to be people out there who are ignorant, who judge you, who put stigma and shame on you, but that's for them to carry. Like, honest to God, anybody that I meet who's in recovery or on some sort of sobriety journey, I have the utmost respect for, because I know what it takes.
The amount of times that I've opened my mouth and been vulnerable,
Mm,
I'm an oversharer. It's probably a character defect of mine. But the amount of times, like I've sat there in proper serious meetings and said, I'm in recovery. I'm part of a 12-step program. So I can't bullshit. I've got to be honest. My program tells me I have to, and they sort of look at me a bit funny. But the amount of times that I step into that vulnerability, and so like in this one particular meeting that I'm talking about, this lady looked up and said, "Oh, I'm wearing this t." I asked her about her t-shirt. It was about a mental health thing, and she stood into that and said that she'd lost a child to suicide, and
mm,
it opens up doors when you talk with vulnerability that other people match you with that. And just the depth of connection and conversation is so much more meaningful.
mm,
I'd prefer to stand there and say to someone, I'm an addict, what's your greatest challenge? Or what are you doing to work on yourself? Than how's the weather? How's your football team going? Because that's pretty fucking surface level shit, really, isn't
mm.
it?
Without a doubt.
Mm.
It's the scariest thing to think about, but the reward and the benefit on the other side far outweighs the fear of leaning into the unknown in that situation. And I really want to support people to own it and to get the help that they need. Like, the only thing that's guaranteed is that if you don't change anything, then nothing will change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And so
Yeah.
if you're sitting here listening along today thinking to yourself, I just need to get off this fucking hamster wheel,
Mm.
then reach out, put your hand out, go and get the help, walk into a 12-step meeting. You'll be welcomed with open arms. And if you're not comfortable, ready yet, don't tell anyone else, but do it for yourself.
Yeah, and the first one might not be the one, like I've been to like several fellowships and I've found my groove, with people
Mm,
that are like me. It's about the similarities, right? In the
mhm,
rooms or anywhere, and we share our story. I've never been more inspired by walking into rooms with people that I never thought I would socialize with,
mm,
like I'm born in Frankston, went to private school, so I sort of know both ends of the scale. But it's when I walk into these rooms and see people that literally have lost children, they've lost loved ones, they've really, really had, I would say, more challenges than what I've had. Like, I've had an incredibly privileged life. Um, but we share similarities, and I give them my number and I help them out, or
Mm,
at, because others have done the same to me, you know?
mm,
And
mm,
and what we have in recovery is just so much more valuable than the houses we live in, the holidays we go on, and the cars we drive.
mm, And you start to care less about it, I find, because
Yeah.
you're more peaceful within. It's not to say that you don't want the stuff or that you can't have drive or ambition. I think all of that's really, it's whatever you desire, at the end of the day. But your worth is not tied to it. I think that's the
A
biggest
a hun
difference.
100%, and that was a lie that I was told going to a private school for such a long time. It was, we finished up and it was, "You're gonna be a doctor, a lawyer, or, an accountant." And I said, "I don't know." And they said, "James, you won't get through life on charm alone." So I became a salesperson.
You're like, watch me.
You watch me go for it. And here I sit.
Yeah. Hey, I want to know a little bit more about how you have come home to yourself in that your identity is obviously no longer the party guy.
Mm.
How do you show up today? How has it been difficult? How have your friendships evolved? What does that look like?
Yeah. So my nickname was Disco Ash for a long time, for various reasons that I won't go into, but
Yep.
generally being the life of the party, right? And and it sort of still is a little bit. I'm thinking I might retire it at some point, like have a sailing off ceremony or whatever. But that was my nickname for a long time, and I still go to parties and I still enjoy myself, like I just have plans to get away and get out of it. Recovery is very fun for me.
Mm,
I still
mm,
have a lot of fun, and like there's nothing more enjoyable than um a milestone birthday dinner with others in recovery, but I'm still able to connect deeply with others through food and through music and through nature. Like, I look at the time of the year and there's still barbecues, and there's opportunities for me to grab the tongs with meaning and, to nourish those around me out in nature. I can still be involved in, the football club that I'm part of, playing footy again as an old man, playing super rules. There's still other ways to remain connected to community. And I mean, I like, alcohol-free drinks are something that, are part of my recovery. Like, I'll have an alcohol-free beer. I know that some in our space say that it's not a great idea. As a matter of fact, my sponsor pulled me up on it yesterday. He said, "I just saw this thing you posted and I want you to have a think about that." And,
mm,
which is great because that's what sponsors are there for, and I've got to understand that it might work for me, but as we try in our recovery community to help one person, if what
mm.
we do hinders another person, we need to be really mindful of that as well, that it can be triggering.
Yeah.
So, I'm mindful of what I do in that space, but life in recovery is fun. I feel
Mm,
more connected now than what I ever did. My partying days made me very connected broadly with many people.
mm,
I felt like I was friends with a lot of people. Um, Now, but then it became very isolating. I felt very trapped by my addiction towards the end, and very, very lonely. And as we know that, addiction is very lonely, and recovery connects us, and I feel very connected to many groups now, in recovery and socially. So connection is a big part of my recovery as well.
And I imagine that connection with your family, like how you show up as a dad now, has probably completely changed as well.
Oh, unbelievably.
Yeah.
My concept of being connected and providing for my family was more or less making them laugh or providing materially for them.
Mm.
Um, and that's not what they needed. They needed their dad to be present, and
Mm.
they needed to be heard, and their needs to be met. And I'm able to see and feel that now. And,
Mm.
and the same with my wife, I am learning more and more about her love languages, and how I can be there for her. And she's able to tell me what she needs, and I'm able to
Mm.
meet her there now, and it's our relationship is blossoming. I am uh, At once I had an hope and belief, and now I absolutely know. And I'm able to fall in love with her all over again, which is a really beautiful
Mm.
thing to do, and it's one of the gifts of recovery.
It's exactly what I was thinking in my mind as you were talking. Like, that is an absolute gift of recovery. How beautiful.
Mm. It's amazing, and we get like a second chance at it, and
Mm.
she's a rock and a godsend and an angel. I just wouldn't be here despite the way that I behaved. And she has stood by me, and she's had empathy and kindness after a lot of anger. She was very, very angry, but
Good.
when
Yeah. You got to
yeah,
get that
I'm
out.
good on her. Get it out, get it out. But
Mm.
once there was empathy and kindness and concern there, that's when I changed.
Yeah.
That's when, and life has just got better and better.
She sounds like an incredible woman. Yeah.
She
So
is.
I'm very happy for you guys.
Thank you.
James, I have absolutely loved chatting with you today. We are
It's
coming to
been
the
a
end of this
ball.
conversation. I know. Hey, I want to ask you a final
Yes.
question.
Mm.
What are your 3 non-negotiables that allow you to live your life today happy, authentic, and free?
I'm going to say number one is to listen.
Mm.
So to listen to others, to listen to ourselves, to listen to the universe around
Mm.
us, because the answers are there. The answers are out there, and there's stories everywhere. And through those stories, we have the answers. So
I
that's
love
number
that
one.
so much. All right. That's
Mm.
great listening. Perfect.
Um, Acts of service we touched on earlier. I just think that that's a fundamental way of living life, giving to others without expecting anything in return. I've taken a lot from the world, and I feel like I owe it much more.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's a big debt that I've got, but I've got a long time now to pay it off, Ash.
Mm. I love that.
And
I
mm,
actually, I'm going to butcher it, but I just saw this thing on Instagram this morning and it was like, being of service is the debt we pay for the price of living on this earth. And I was like,
yeah,
oof, I love
yeah,
that. Yeah, so good.
absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And I think gratitude above all else. So
Mm.
I think that gratitude for time, gratitude for connection, gratitude for this big world around us, which we have. And I absolutely loved when you sent me an email, and at the bottom it said, with gratitude, Ash Butters. And I write with gratitude because
Yeah.
on the bottom of my email sign off, um, because cheers is no longer appropriate for me to write. And if someone's made it to the bottom of my email, then they deserve a thank you, and a thank you for their
Hmm.
time, which is just so important.
I love that. So we're landing with listening. I love that. And listening to the universe because the answers are already within us. I completely agree. Acts of service and gratitude.
That's it. They're my 3.
What a beautiful way to end this conversation today. Hey, James, if people want to check you out, follow you, find the podcast, where do they go?
Instagram, Slaying Sober Pod is the best place. You'll find me directly. Reach out. I get back to everyone. Got a small enough audience to be able to do so. And yeah, and thank you, Ash. I really have. You've helped me a great deal in my recovery, and I've been a fanboy from afar. So I am very, very grateful for everything you do for our community and for your time today.
Oh, James, thank you. We say here on Behind the Smile that when we recover loudly, no one needs suffer in silence. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm so grateful.
Bless you. Thanks, Ash.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.